Hey, it's Michelle with the Medicine Couch, and I recently just got back from a CME4Life PANRE review conference that was held in San Antonio, Texas. And I wanted to make a review video of that conference for you to help people decide if this is right for them, if they're looking for a PANRE or PANRE-LA review course. Because, these conferences aren't cheap, and especially if you're traveling and spending all that money, you want a course that you're going to enjoy and that's going to give you the information that you need. So hopefully you will find this helpful. For those of you who may not watch this video all the way to the end, I want to mention now that I will have the link to CME4Life's website down below. Right now, I'm happy to announce that I have a 15% off discount code that I can offer to you. I'll have that code down below in the description box, but that code is for a limited time. So if you're watching this video after the code has expired, you still can always get 10% off of any products with CME4Life, and I'll have that code down there as well. So like I said, this conference was held in San Antonio, Texas. We were in a nice hotel right near the Riverwalk. It was very convenient and easy to get to it. So in the evenings, it was so convenient just to be able to go and explore and have fun. That's one of the things I like about CME4Life is that they hold their conferences in nice places, in nice hotels, but they're not the primo top of the line, uber expensive places. It's more affordable and reasonable, which is always appreciated. And if you don't want to travel and go in person, they also have a live streaming option as well. Now, the structure of the course, it is held for 4 days. Goes from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. each of those days. The owner of CME4Life is John Belinsky, and he teaches these courses. He's a fabulous teacher. I really love his teaching style, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. But he's also very punctual. He always begins at 8 and ends at 5. The first couple of days, we had like a 45-minute to an hour lunch break. But I will say the last 2 days, he wanted to make sure he'd get all the material in, and he was a little bit behind. So we had shorter lunch breaks, like 15, 20 minutes. But of course, you could eat while he was talking, so it wasn't a big issue if you hadn't finished your lunch. He covers a ton of material in the course, but it's also precision material, meaning that he has spent a lot of time going through the blueprint and understanding how much you have to know about each topic. For those of you who aren't familiar with the PANRE or PANRE-LA blueprint, it's the same blueprint for both tests, but NCCPA tells you at to what depth you have to know each of the categories that are listed. So whether you just need to be able to diagnose it, or whether you need to be able to know the basic intervention or complex intervention, whatever. John has studied all that, and he tailors the material, so he's teaching you exactly what you need to know. They send out the slides ahead of time so that you can have them loaded on your computer, and you can take notes as going along. But if you're somebody who likes paper and likes to have a book and write things out, you can pay a little extra fee, and they will actually print the slides and put it in a binder. They will bring it with them to the conference. It is a pretty big binder, has lots of room throughout the binder for you to take notes on. Another thing to mention about the course is that John does offer a 100% pass guarantee, meaning if you sign up for this course and you do not pass your recertification exam, they will work with you to make sure that they support you and help you in any way that they can so you do pass. So I think that's really great. John is going to talk about that a little bit more later in this interview. I have a short snippet where I'd asked him a couple of questions, and that's one of the things he's going to talk about and explain it a little bit more in depth later. Now, I talked about food, and I will say that we were well taken care of. They provide breakfast, lunch, afternoon snack, and beverage station every day. So you always have some great choices of things to drink, and you always have food. Now, breakfast every day started, I believe, at 7:30, and it was always a hot breakfast every morning. The options changed, though, so it wasn't the same thing every day. But there was generally always eggs, like bacon or sausage, French toast, different things like that, and bagels and croissants. They had a yogurt station one day, and they usually always had fresh fruit available. Lunch was a bag lunch from the hotel, so couldn't have as much variety, but it was always a different sandwich every day or a wrap, accompanied with salad or like a macaroni salad, chips, fruit, granola bars, different things like that. And then the afternoon snack was like one day they had a make your own trail mix station, which is really cool. And then another day they had a different variety of chips and pretzels, things like that. One day they had different protein and granola bars. And then the beverage station, all day long, you have access to coffee and hot tea. And they had a nice variety of different flavors of hot tea for those of us who don't drink coffee. They have a water station. And then in the afternoon, they would have the iced tea station with sweet and unsweet tea. So I would say first class all the way on the food, and it was really appreciated. Another thing that they do that I like is that they try to help people interact with each other and, make these connections and get to know other PAs. So for many of the nights, they would offer like a get together. Of course, you didn't have to, but if you were there by yourself or you just wanted, some more company and get to meet other people, you could join up. So one night we went to this restaurant/sports bar where we had dinner and watched the Stanley Cup game. And another night we went to this piano bar, which was really a lot of fun. And then another night after the sun had gone down, we had gathered up on the rooftop bar to watch this laser show that plays on the side of this nearby church. So interesting and fun events, and it was nice to get to meet a lot of the other PAs in the group and, make those connections and network. Now, as far as the material and the sitting through 4 days of review, I didn't know what to expect. I don't know that I've ever been to a conference that was that intense CME for that long. And so I was a little worried, but I shouldn't have been. I know John's teaching style, and I've been to a course of his before, but that was urgent care, and those were like half days, not 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day. But John has a way of teaching that for me is very engaging, and it makes the time pass very quickly. He does a lot of different things to achieve that effect. One is varying his voice. He changes his voice dynamics. Sometimes he'll get really loud, or he'll smack his hands or do something like that when he's talking. And so that really, snaps your brain to attention and keeps your brain locked in. And then other times he'd get really quiet and you'd lean in and you'd want to hear what he's telling you because he's telling you a story or letting you in on a real choice pearl. So that's naturally engaging for your brain to constantly be shifting gears like that. He's not somebody that stands up there and just drones on. He tells a lot of dad jokes, and so they, make you laugh and break up the afternoon. Some of them make you groan, but even then, even when the whole class groans, then people start laughing. And so it's a nice little break and keeps the atmosphere more lively. In addition to that, he has a way of explaining things that for me just kind of makes things click, right? Like things that I have read or, heard lectures on before, but I don't quite understand them the same way as when he explains them. And he makes some things so simple. For instance, beta 1 or beta 2 receptors. I know we study those in school. I know I've read several times where you find the different receptors. But then John explained it and he said, we have one heart and we have 2 lungs. So beta 1 receptors are in the heart mostly. Beta 2 receptors are in the lungs. So brilliant. So easy to remember. I will remember that for the rest of my life. He also has lots of mnemonics that help you remember things, and they're often accompanied with hand gestures. So again, that's more audience participation, more kinesthetic learning as you follow his hand gestures that help you remember these things. One of the really great sections he teaches is on the pediatric rashes. And those are so hard to remember, like, does this rash start on the face and go to the trunk, or does it start on the trunk and go up? Or, what is the pattern of these different rashes? And that's so key and important to know, because you really can't answer the question until you identify what disease we're talking about. And that rash pattern is huge in helping you with that identification. But they're complicated, right? Roseola and rubella and all the different ones. The names sound similar. And if you don't work with beads, it's hard to remember. But he has a whole mnemonic system for that. It's a lot of fun to learn, and it really just kind of sticks into your brain. And he also has mnemonics that kind of help you logic through things. So a great example of that would be the BEAST mnemonic. BEAST stands for things that have acute onset, that come on really fast and suddenly. And, in these questions, it's not like the real world where things can be a little bit more gray. They have to make these black and whites so that they're setting up what it is that they want you to get to. And so if there's something that's going to be a sudden onset, it's going to be a sudden onset. It's going to be acute. It's going to come on rapidly versus something like an infection that's brewing slowly or a chronic condition. So he talks to you about paying attention in questions about what they're asking for and what they're describing. And if they describe something that is acute onset, then you have to immediately be able to think about what those conditions are that really have acute onset. And they can be pretty much summed up with the BEAST mnemonic. So B stands for things that burst, an appendix that bursts, or a peptic ulcer that bursts, or an ovarian cyst that bursts. E stands for emboli, so that could be a PE in the lungs or a stroke. A stands for arrhythmias. So if somebody's having a syncopal episode, is it an arrhythmia that's causing it? S stands for stones, like a sudden onset kidney stone or a gallbladder stone. And then T stands for torsion or telescoping. So that would be like a testicular torsion or an intussusception of a bowel. So if you read through the answers of a question that has something that's acute onset, and some of the conditions that are in the answers are not in that list, in that BEAST list, then you can just go ahead and knock those out, and then you narrow down your choices. And of course, not only do these things help you pass your boards, but they help you become a better clinician. And like I said, he talks about understanding trigger words, looking for things like acute versus chronic, understanding that when you're reading vital signs, not to just read the numbers, but to kind of interpret them as you're reading them so that you have a better mental picture when you get done reading the format of the question. And he also talks about, those buzzwords that we like on tests, like strawberry cervix, and we know they're talking about PID. But he does mention that, they're not always going to spoon feed you those trigger words. They're going to maybe describe a very erythematous and inflamed cervix, maybe indurated, something like that. And so he spends a little bit of time talking about other ways that they could describe those key words so you know what you're looking for and what they're pointing you to. And along those same lines, he talks about when they're asking you those more complex intervention questions about whether they're asking for the next step or whether they're asking for the definitive test or something like that, because they're not always the same thing. And he explains that on certain topics that you have to know the complex intervention. And he explains what the test is that you would actually normally order versus what the definitive test is, because a definitive test may not actually be something we use regularly in practice. So he kind of explains those two and talks about how to look for those trigger words when you're taking the test so you know exactly where they're trying to point you to. And then, as always in John's conferences, he weaves in a lot of the medical legal stuff to help you chart better and to be more defendable. And I told you I wanted you to hear from John directly. I had just a few minutes and I asked him a couple of questions about what he loves about teaching and his teaching style and more about that 100% pass guarantee. So here's John. What do you love about teaching these PANRE review courses?
Being in an audience with colleagues, people with more experience than I do, but also specialty fields, neurosurgical, OBGYN, psych, ophthalmology. So to be with my colleagues where they're way smarter than me in some areas, but to help them tie things together, I love that. But Michelle, the biggest thing is about 4 years ago, I had a guy who went to one of our PANRE courses and we were doing testimonials and he got up and he goes, I can't believe the NCCPA makes us do these, and nurse practitioners don't. And I was really angry, and I couldn't believe I had to come here to this course. And I was like, "Whoa, this guy's got hostile." And then he goes, "That's what I thought until I came to this course." And he said, "I got updated in all sorts of different medicines I wasn't aware of. You showed me different tools to think about, and basically, I'm leaving here as a way better clinician. And if I didn't have to take the test, I wouldn't have taken this course." So, Michelle, what I love the most is to work with professional colleagues. We're right here. I just happen to have an expertise in teaching, to have a privilege of helping my colleagues grow And not only passing the boards and make them stronger in what they do, it fires me up. It's my call. It's almost my ministry. Like I love sharing this information with others.
So, last question for you. What happens in your course if people go through the course and they don't pass the PANRE? How do you address that?
If anybody comes to our course, we have you. It's 100% guaranteed. You will pass. We will do whatever it takes. You'll come back into the course for free. We have a ton of study resources and study groups. Now, I do personal tutoring, not often, but I have. But anybody who comes to our course, you invest. I'm less concerned about your money. I'm concerned about your time. We're busy. You're busy. I'm busy. We're all busy. So if you're going to invest time and money to come to my courses, we're getting you through it. We have a system that's been very effective. So it's 100% guaranteed.
Great. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, John.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
I think you can tell from listening to that John has a real heart for people, and he really loves teaching and helping people to improve their practices and also to pass their recertification exams. Now, if you're trying to decide whether John's style vibes with you or not, which I think is really important to do, then I would suggest you go to his YouTube channel. I'll have a link to that down below as well. He's got over 1,000 videos. Most of them are snippets of him teaching because, like I said earlier, these conferences are expensive to go to, and you want to make sure that you're going to the conferences right for you. Nobody is going to be right for everybody. And we all have our own different style and things that we like and dislike. So I really encourage you to spend a little bit of time checking out his YouTube channel, watching some of the videos, and see if you resonate with him and his teaching style. In case you can't tell, I would highly recommend this course. I think it is fabulous, and I found myself thinking during the course that this is a course that every clinician should take, whether they're preparing for the PANRE or not. I really feel like it can help most of us improve our practice. Don't forget that the link to the course is down below, but more importantly, you have that discount code to save some money, either 10 or 15% off, depending on when you're watching this video. Check the description box down below for those codes. Now, I said I had gone to another CME4Life conference, and that was the urgent care conference that was actually held in Vegas. And I did a review of that conference as well. If you're interested in checking out that review, you can watch it here. Thanks so much for joining me, and as always, take care, stay sane, and I'll see you next time on the Medicine Couch. Bye.